Hello, everybody. My name is Sylvain Rochon, and I am the Paradise Engineer. Today, I'd like to talk about what can the United Nations do to help with extraterrestrial contact. And in fact, the Alliance, we are in constant search for ways for the United Nations to discuss the possibility of first contact, establishment of a formal embassy in a country or other because it's really important to get the engagement of all nations. And that's for our own security, because nations can fight each other about the rights of foreign contact, who's going to be at the discussion table, what will be negotiated, and so on. So we're in danger to be in conflict with each other, and therefore, we can cause serious problems with each other. Fortunately, the United Nations has been established to engage in such conversations. In fact, the 1969 Vienna Convention on diplomatic relations, that agreement was crafted by the UN to establish rules of diplomacy so that countries especially, could establish embassies in relationship with other nations, extraterritoriality, and it sets aside a certain number of rules for diplomats and the embassies in which they can reside and operate within the boundaries of a foreign land, basically. And if somebody is declared as a diplomat with the United Nations, then they have special diplomatic immunity that goes beyond any kind of law of any nation. That is the agreement. So extraterrestrials and on NHI don't have rights according to our laws, because our laws apply to human beings, and most people will interpret human beings being of Earth, born here, not NHI or ET. So giving them diplomatic coverage would be ideal. And that's something the United Nations can do. There are other things that we can do with the UN. For example, we can, and actually we must, and this is something that we are working on, add an optional protocol to that Vienna Convention, because it doesn't exactly talk about how you establish an embassy with an extraterrestrial civilization or nation. So there's additional writings that have to cover that, plus it has the space component and so on. That can be discussed in convention, which is something we're working on and discussing with some parts of the world, some leaders in the world, to get that started at the United Nations. Any country member of the United Nations can declare a convention, and other nations are invited to discuss the matter. So that can happen reasonably easily, and there's several nations that are interested in actually getting that started. So we'll hopefully get that going. There are even more things we can do with the UN regarding ET contact and first contact. First, the Outer Space Treaty could be upgraded to add post-detection and messaging protocols. So that's an idea that the Committee of Peaceful, what is it? The Committee of the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space could take on from within the General Assembly of the UN and negotiate additional protocols to the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 to adopt the IAA SETI Declaration of Principles, for example. That's something that SETI built on the principle of like what happens if we do have contact. This document already exists, so that can be a starting point that already is in place as an interim rule set for first contact. And then the COPUOS, the Committee for Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, could also set a moratorium on unilateral replies until Assembly votes on some kind of upgrade of the Outer Space Treaty. Because what we want to do is we add that post-detection and messaging protocol. So how are we actually going to be communicating? Which in case our suggestion would be at an embassy established in a certain host nation. The UN could also create a special office for extraterrestrial relations in preparation for first contact. So that would mean possibly, as an example, upgraded ONUSA, which is already an organization within the UN that deals with all space matters, to become a standalone agency like WHO, so that it would have a fast response center for ET affairs. So when there is contact, which may be a little surprising for us, a first formal contact, that agency could move from outside of the UN, just like the WHO does independently, and react to that situation according to the established rules, the extra protocol of the Vienna Convention, the upgrade to the Outer Space Treaty, for example, and all this stuff that everybody would be in agreement on, because it all would have been set up through the United Nations. So the UN as a body, even though it's really slow and it's contentious sometimes, can be a useful tool that allows all nations to have an agreement with each other on that first contact, which de-risks the whole situation, because then the agreement is in place, it's all documented, it's public, and there we go. So if you want to help with this mission, contact the Alliance, especially if you have inroads within those organizations I mentioned, and we can work together towards making these things happen. Thank you so much. Until next time.